the point for them to stay, along with Horford, Smart, Tatum, really because Tatum has a lot of potential, really to build a big three around Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, and Jason Tatum. I mean, that would leave Celtics fans salivating. But now are Kawhi Leonard and Kyrie Irving on that same page? I can't see them leaving Boston, but Kyrie Irving is reportedly very high on the Knicks, and Kawhi Leonard is reportedly very high on going to LA. And would they be willing to stay in Boston next year when both of them become free agents? Or would they want to go their separate ways? Or, as we'll bring up in a second, well, we'll leave that for a second, okay? And
I will say it did seem like last year Kyrie did want to play with Kawhi. So one of the places he wanted to get traded to was San Antonio, and I think that was a big Kawhi factor. I think that there would be a lot of potential for both those players to stay in Boston. I don't think it's a sure thing. I do think it's something that could happen. I will ask you this. If the Spurs don't trade Kawhi to the Lakers this year, and the Lakers get LeBron on the max and Paul George on a max contract, will they be able to afford Kawhi next year on a max deal?
And this is actually where I was going to come in with why the Spurs could be extremely patient with making this trade. So, no, they cannot. They would not be able to afford Kawhi Leonard next year if LeBron James and Paul George sign. And this is why the Spurs could be patient with this trade. And really, they don't have to do this trade now. They could see how everything works out in the NBA. They could watch Philadelphia spend their money, spend the money they have available on either a top free agent or other free agents. They could watch the Lakers, see what the Lakers do, see whether the Lakers do sign LeBron James and Paul George. Because now, if the Lakers do sign LeBron James and Paul George, now the Spurs could have asked for a little more than they were asking at the start of the offseason right now. So right now, the Lakers could offer Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and maybe their first-round draft pick. However, if they sign LeBron James and Paul George, they're really going to want Kawhi there. I mean, really going to want Kawhi there. So now they could be like, Spurs could be like, hey, you know what? Give us Josh Hart in that deal too. Give us your draft pick 2 years from now. Give us your draft pick 4 years from now. And are the Lakers going to say no? I think they're going to take Kawhi Leonard in that deal, and the Spurs could really push for more, not only from them, but if Philly uses their cap space, watch Philly offer a little more, and watch these teams really bid out for Kawhi Leonard once they don't have cap space available, not only throughout the remainder of this offseason, but for next offseason as well. Because there have been discussions if both Philly and LA do not get top stars this year, they're both going to save their money for next year, and they both will still have a lot of cap space available for next year. They'll sign a lot of players like they did this year on one-year deals, like the Lakers did with Contavious Caldwell-Pope, like the Philadelphia did with J.J. Redick and Amir Johnson, I believe it was. So the thing there is, if they do get those superstars, now the Spurs could push for more from each team because they know how badly both those teams are going to want Kawhi Leonard on their roster, but won't have the money available to do it.
Can I ask, why isn't this part being talked about? Why is this being said that it's a shirt? Because to me, the way I look at it, LeBron and Paul George are almost certainly going to go to the Lakers. I don't envision Paul George staying with the Thunder. I mean, that team being put together is a good team, but can they compete? And who really wants to play with Russell Westbrook? I mean, come on. LeBron James, it seems like to me, is going to LA. Staying at Cleveland doesn't seem like they have a lot of assets. I mean, maybe they can pick up another player, but
they'd be able to pick up Kemba Walker. However, they lose some of their depth by picking up Kemba Walker. They'd have to lose a draft pick.
They didn't have much to begin with.
They didn't have much of it. Yeah, and the energy they did have, which includes the young guys they had on their roster, including Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance, who they picked up at the trade deadline, would most likely have to go to Charlotte along with their number 8 draft pick. So they would lose all their youth again. Now they'd have C.D. Osman, who a solid player, solid rotation player, but that's it. He doesn't have much star potential. There's really not much youth there, and if they want to pick up a player like Kemba Walker, they'd essentially have to give up all that youth to pick up Kemba Walker. Now, if that's what helps them keep LeBron, then yes, definitely do that trade and lose that youth for Kemba Walker, because Kemba Walker is a borderline all-star. However, that is something that they have to consider. And especially without a guarantee from LeBron, are they going to make that trade knowing that LeBron might not resign even if Kemba Walker goes over there?
Okay, so we kind of veered off topic. Let's get back to Boston. I think that the Boston trade that works the best, and we haven't really discussed this. I don't think a Kawhi for Kyrie trade straight up actually works for both teams. Maybe it works better for Boston because they don't have to give up their young assets, which are these wings that are just very highly needed in today's NBA. And you could keep Scary Terry and Shane Larkin and Marcus Smart and kind of have like a pseudo point guard there. But I don't think the Spurs make that deal because it's pretty much, you might as well keep Kawhi then because Kyrie's probably not going to stay with the Spurs.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. There's no reason for the Spurs to make the Kawhi for Kyrie trade. Even if Boston includes a Sacramento pick, includes another first round pick, there's no point for the Spurs to do that. The Spurs are in this situation with Kawhi now, and they're really their hands are really strapped, and they pretty much have to make that Kawhi Leonard trade. Maybe not right away, but at the absolute latest by the trade deadline, because of the fact that he could leave for nothing. And not only could he leave for nothing, very high chances are that he does leave for nothing in free agency if the Spurs don't trade him. So why would a situation be different with Kyrie Irving? I mean, yes, the Spurs are a great organization. They are ran very great. They have Popovich as their coach, who is a fantastic coach. However, they don't have much to offer in terms of winning potential in the future. Aldridge, like I said, is about 33, 34. They have a couple of young guys. But right now, those young guys look like they're going to be solid rotation players and not much more. None of them look like superstars. And Kyrie Irving does not want to play in San Antonio. As far as we know, Kyrie Irving does not want to play in San Antonio. His desire is to go to New York. Which is a big market, and San Antonio is not a big market. But
that's also playing for New York, which has James Dolan is his name, as the terrible owner. You have not much future. You have these terrible contracts with Tim Hardaway Jr. getting $20 million a year. Joakim Noah is going to be getting paid for like the next 15 years.
He's getting paid for 2 more years. So let's actually jump into that. So it's going to be the next question I was going to pose. Do you believe that trading for Kawhi Leonard, trading Kristaps Porzingis for Kawhi Leonard is worth it for the Knicks? So I want to hear your answer, and then I will give you my response.
I will have to. So Kawhi spent some time in New York. There's been a lot of talk about how Kawhi loves New York. Now, obviously, the biggest place they can go was still LA, where Kawhi wants to go. But I think the second most place that he would be most likely to stay would be New York. Now, my question here would be, if they trade for Kawhi, right?
Yes.
Can they afford Kyrie next year?
So that's where my answer comes in. So if the Spurs, the only way it's worth it for the Knicks to trade for Kawhi, to trade Kristaps Porzingis for Kawhi, is if they include a player like Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, I don't think the Spurs would take on a Noah contract, who's got 2 years at about $18 million left on his contract and does not produce at all. However, I'm sorry, did you? Yeah.
Well, I don't think the Spurs would take it, but I think if the Knicks want to get rid of that contract, can they include Frankie Smokes to a team who has some money?
With the Knicks, my suggestion, my offer from the Knicks would be if I'm the New York Knicks, I offer you Kristaps Porzingis, Frank Ntilikina, and Tim Hardaway Jr. and get rid of he's at about anywhere between 16 and 18 million over 3 years. Now you get rid of that contract along with your 2 young players, but you keep your pick this year, you keep your pick next year, you keep Emmanuel Mudiay, who's a joke at this point, which I don't even know why I'm tossing his name around. But yeah, you keep those players and you get rid of one big contract. Now that leaves you for the 2019 offseason, that leaves you with 2 more big contracts, I should say. One of them is Courtney Lee, who had a very solid season, and you'd be able to trade that contract, probably even pick up a couple of draft assets, even if it's a couple second rounders. There would definitely be a team willing to take on Courtney Lee with the way he played this year. And you'd be able to pull off that trade either this offseason or midseason if he continues to play well. Now, if you save him into the season and he struggles, then it might be a little harder. But there would be a team willing to take on Courtney Lee's contract. Even if he has a terrible year, there would be a team willing to take it on if you include a couple second rounders. So Courtney Lee's contract is at about $10 million, give or take, with a couple years left on it. Now, the thing with Noah's contract. So Noah's contract, you'd be able to then stretch over the next 3 seasons, which it would cost them about $6 million a year, give and take, over the next 3 seasons. So now you have Kawhi Leonard on your roster with about a $30 million cap hold as a free agent, Joakim Noah at about $6 million, and their 2 draft picks combining for about $10 million. Now all of a sudden you have about, let's say, on the safe side, about $45 million to spend next season on free agents. So yes, Kyrie Irving would definitely be able to come on a max contract, and you'd be able to sign another very solid player for anywhere between 15 and 20 million.
As a Spurs fan, what I would rather see is you do the Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway, and you give up their draft pick. The reason why I wouldn't want Frankie Nicotine, and I think he's a good player and he's a valuable asset.
Frankie Tilinkina.
But I wouldn't want him because he's a very similar player to DeJounte Murray. I think that both of them are 6'5" point guards, right?
Yes.
They could probably be combo guards, but they both can't shoot. I think that is a problem for San Antonio. Now, if you give San Antonio that number 9 pick, and you take San Antonio's history of drafting, and they're really good at it, I think they can do something with that pick. I understand that, well, maybe Kyrie and Frankie Ntilikina would be a pretty decent combo because one plays defense, the other one's the offensive guy, right?
Yes, correct. And so what if the Knicks say, no, we're not offering our number 9 pick, we offer you Porzingis, Tilinkina, and maybe they say, you know what, instead of Tilinkina, you could have our first round pick next year, which I don't think they would do just because a team with a Kawhi who is not, we don't know about his health yet. And if you're trading away Porzingis, who granted is injured now too, but if you're trading away Porzingis, if you're trading away Tilinkina, and if you plan on trading away Courtney Lee mid-season, with Kawhi's uncertain status, I think the Knicks would want to keep their pick just in case Kawhi either doesn't come back healthy or re-injures himself. Then that pick would be an extremely high pick for the Knicks this year. So let's just say, what if they offer, like, here, we're going to offer you Porzingis, Tilinkina, Tim Hardaway Jr., who actually was a decent player this year. Obviously not worth the amount of money he's making, but he is a good scorer, so which the Spurs would need if they traded away Kawhi Leonard. And let's say they give him a couple of second-round draft picks.
As a Spurs fan, you got to say yes, because you're getting Kristaps Porzingis, and you don't know if you're going to get better value for Kawhi than Kristaps.
Exactly.
Now, Kristaps is a tough... he had the injury issues, and he's a 7'3" guy, and there's there's a lot of questions that arise with 7'3" guys and their durability. And you get Frankie, and you know what? Maybe you trade him or DeJounte, right?
Exactly.
You can make it work.
You can make it, especially because they're both rookies. They're both, if you split that time at point guard or they both play in the backcourt at a time, you could give them both legitimately anywhere between 24 and 30 minutes a game, which at this point of their careers, that's what they've earned and that's what they should be playing.
And then you keep the one that develops a better shot, and then you trade the other one. They both have good trade value. They can play defense, and defense is really important. The more I think about it, this New York thing, because I'm not a New York fan, but I could see New York's got to do something big. New York has struggled for a very long time. They haven't put together a good team. So maybe them taking a swing for the fences here, right? Trying to get Kawhi, trying to get Kyrie, can be what changes their fate. Kyrie and Kawhi in the East, that's a pretty good team. I am under the assumption that LeBron is leaving the East, right? And the only thing that's going to be standing in your way then is there's 2 teams, the Celtics and the 76ers, but you get Kyrie and Kawhi, who are both champions, right? They both played well. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, to me, before he got injured, he was a top 3 player, right?